Alright. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tea and Games, the show where I make a cup of tea and talk about a game. This week, there's less stuff to take up the camera in the game, so maybe I'll actually be able to keep the tea in shot for this episode. However, I make no promises. But first, the tea. Okay. So, I have decided that I'm also going to try and talk a little bit more about the teas that I actually drink on this channel. So, this week's is a black cask bourbon tea made by Harney and Sons, which has a very smoky and vanilla flavor, and it is wonderful and well worth trying. And while that seeps, we will begin to talk about our game this week. This week we are talking about the game Star Realms, a deck building game for two or more players designed by Robert Dowry and Darwin Castle and published by Wise Wizard Games. Also, as a note, this is not the original box. This is a proprietary box that they sell for when your card collection has outgrown the original box, which mine has. In Star Realms, you play as the commander of an intergalactic fleet, building your navy, expanding your power base, and destroying your rivals until you are the last leader standing. To set up, give each player a starting deck of 8 scouts and 2 vipers. Again, mine are sleeved. The base game is not, and has these pretty little card backs. The art on this game is beautiful, on basically every card. Then then set every player's authority, their health stat, to 50. There's not really a good way in the base game to record it. I picked up a set of a thing of counting dice specifically for this. So we will have a black player and a red player, because those are the first 2 dice that I'm grabbing, who will both have 50 health. Once that is done, you shuffle your starting deck. And draw a 5-card hand. Which that will be red's 5-card hand. And that will be black's 5-card hand. Then, take... That is not the thing I thought I was grabbing, because I forgot I put those back in the box, because I am scatterbrained. Take the explorers from the box, and set them to the side. Eventually I will find space for everything. Then, shuffle the remaining cards. We're just going to grab a chunk of of everything that's in the box, because this is about half of what I have in that box. Which is fine. Also, I forgot to silence my phone, which is also fine. And might end up getting cut from the final script. shuffle the starter deck, shuffle the trade deck, which is every card that is not a starter deck or explorer, and deal 5 cards face up where they will be visible to all players. This is your trade row. Then, choose a player to go first. The game says to choose randomly, though you could always go with the shiniest player. Once all of the setup is done, the first player takes their turn. On your turn, you may play any number of ships from your hand, trigger their effects, and then discard any remaining cards in your hand and draw 5 new cards. For the first turn, you'll only have Scouts, which are worth 1 trade, and Vipers, which are worth 1 combat. You can use trade to buy anything in the trade row that is worth your total number of trade or less. You then spend that much trade to get to that, and once a card is bought, let's say we're buying this Patrol Bot for 2 trade, it goes to our discard pile. And we've now spent this 2 trade, and a new card is flipped face up. We can then buy either that new card or any other card in the trade row for our total buy. Once our turn is done, we discard all cards in hand and draw 5 new cards. There are 2 base types of cards in the game. Ships, which are vertical cards like this, and bases, which are horizontal cards like this. Ships are played, you trigger their effects, and are discarded at the end of your turn. You will start the game with a deck full of ships, Vipers, and Scouts. You will then buy ships and bases from the trade row. Additionally, for bases, there are 2 separate types of bases. There are outposts, like this one, which say outpost on them and also have a blank shield, and bases, like this one. No, the naming convention isn't confusing at all. Which do not say outpost on them and have a metallic colored shield. Both types sit in play, and you can use their effect every turn. So, for example, for both of these, which are bad examples, maybe I can find a better one. This one. And this one. Cool. That was easy. So for Royal Redoubt, every turn it gives me 3 damage, and for the Blob Wheel, every turn it gives me 1 damage. And those sit in play until your opponents kill them. And additionally, outposts are valuable because your opponents must destroy them before they can attack your authority directly. In addition, many cards have either a secondary ability line or a scrap line. The colored circles, like on this trade bot here, or on this Royal Redoubt, denote a faction. So if this is what I have in play, and I play this trade bot, I get the first half of the ability to pay 1 and scrap a card from hand or discard pile, but I do not, and because I have the Fortress Oblivion in play, which is also a red card, to match the red circle on my trade bot, I get the 2 damage. However, because I have the Royal Redoubt in play, I get 3, but I cannot force an opponent to discard a card on the Royal Redoubt because I do not have another yellow card in play. There are also cards that will have a scrap symbol, which is this trash can. When you scrap a card, you are removing it from play. So if I want the 3 money from the blob wheel, I remove that card from the field of play to gain that effect. This effectively takes it out of play for every player in the game, and I will no longer gain its effects. Now you can scrap basically any card in your deck that as long as you have an ability to do it. Many cards will have their abilities, but some cards will let you scrap any card, which lets you get rid of Scouts and Vipers in the late game. Now, and as another note, each faction's cards tend to follow a specific theme. Red cards tend to be very good at thinning your deck. They focus on scrapping cards. Yellow cards force your opponents to discard. Blue cards heal you. And green cards have damage, damage, and more damage. Once you've played all cards from your hand, spent your trade, and dealt your combat, and you enter discard phase, which discards all cards from your hand, and then you draw 5 new cards. If, for whatever reason, you do not have enough cards to draw new cards at the end of your turn, shuffle your discard pile into your deck and then draw 5 cards, or draw up to 5. The game ends when only one player left has authority. That player is the winner. Now, a single Star Realms box, which is not what I have here, is enough for a 2-player game, but it's easily combined with either a second base game box or one of the expansion box sets, either Colony Wars or Frontier. I currently own Colony Wars. I am looking to get Frontier at some point in the future to allow for more players. They even have multiple multiplayer roles in their rulebooks, varying from a game mode called Hunter, which means you can only target the player to your left and have to work through the entire table to get to the person who's currently shooting you. Hydra, to make it a duel of empires, where if you have 4 players, you have one emperor and an admiral, and you have to go through the admiral to kill the emperor, but they can share cards. To a raid mode that makes one of the players the boss that the other players have to try and take down. And if that's not enough, there's a ton of expansions like the aforementioned Colony Wars and Frontier, as well as smaller expansions that give a variety of bonus cards to the trade deck, new card types like heroes, and even entirely new mechanics like events and gambits. There's a lot to love here. That being said, in multiplayer games, there are situations where the game turned very one-sided, and your ability to control what's on the trade row for the person who goes after you can completely screw over other players, and late in the game, you'll sometimes have situations where a player is knocked out the game continues on for another half hour. Well, it's a very fun game. It can tend to drag on and start to feel unfun. That said, I will still recommend this game, and with at least 5 expansions, there's enough interesting cards to keep people coming back. So that is all I have for this week. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time, and until then, good luck, stay safe, and don't die.